let Sukuna dying thanks to a deadline distract you away from Hikari and Urame getting it on shirtless in the latest chapter of JJK. So, yeah, a lot of things have happened now in the last, 10 or so hours since the leaks for the latest chapter, chapter 268, started to come out, and it's just, it's been quite the reaction from the anime and manga community. I mean, to kind of really just summarize, I mean, a lot of people is just really upset with the latest chapter for a variety of reasons, and, it makes a lot of sense, because obviously when we were told only 5 chapters were left, it was very clear that JJK and Gege Akutami did not have enough time to probably answer and cover everything that he set up previously within the story of the manga, to the whole merger situation, to Tengen, to Kinjaku, to the stuff with Yuta, to giving a backstory flashback to Sukuna, all sorts of little details of a Nobara focus and all that. There was a lot, that still needs to be covered, and that's just, a little bit on the surface I'm discussing. That's not the wide variety of everything that potentially I'm just forgetting about right now. So chapter 268 of JJK, it did conclude the fight with Sukuna. Sukuna is officially defeated. I mean, the man literally went out basically like Envy from Full Metal Alchemist, and on top of that, just straight up pathetic. A very pathetic final moment for Sukuna, and you even had Yuji trying to do the whole, hey Sukuna, you could still survive if you get back in my body, but obviously Sukuna, being a very bitter old man, pretty much, was like, nah, I'm not gonna do that, I'd rather die, I'm a curse. And so it's just Sukuna really, at the end of the day, he straight up just, was an irredeemable monster, which I respect to a degree as a villain. He was an irredeemable monster that, he could not change his ways. He did not care about Yuji. He hated Yuji. This man had such a grudge, man, against his nephew. It is just absolutely insane when you really think about it, and it's just to see his conclusion, it's pretty pathetic, man. He died in a very pathetic way, but at the end of the day, we all knew that Sukuna would be defeated, and I think it's pretty fitting. Someone that is labeled the King of Curses, someone that is labeled the strongest sorcerer in history, going down in such a way. It is just truly a hilarious ending, but I think in a way, ironic and also poetic how he actually went down. But with that being said, though, let's get into the actual reasons why people are actually upset with this chapter. So, one thing in particular that everybody is highlighting is the Hikari and Urame stuff that happened within the chapter. And, to be completely blunt here, I'm not a fan of it myself. I'm just going to be completely honest here. I think that it's very clear that maybe 40 so chapters ago, maybe, Gege Akutami, he had plans to really expand upon Hikari, or mainly Urame, but it's clear that somewhere around the direction, when he was writing the whole Sukuna fight, he probably either A, lost track of time and just dedicated too much time to Sukuna, or he just completely forgot about Urame and just didn't want to really focus on Urame anymore whatsoever. And then when the final 5 chapters came around, Gege was like, oh crap, yeah, these 2 characters are fighting, I need to settle this in some way. And so we basically have the entire fight of Hikari versus Urame completely off-screen. It is a completely off-screen fight, completely officially confirmed with the chapter. I've seen the actual leak panels, and you have Urame pretty much say to Hikari, oh, if you were born 1,000 years earlier, you would have lost instantly, but I guess you're very lucky. Hikari's like, ha, I like my luck. And Urame's like, oh, my master's dead, there's no point anymore, so peace out, and basically deletes himself from the story. And it's just how very convenient. How very convenient. A character that had, a lot of potential, potentially very strong, just deletes himself because Sukuna got defeated, and obviously, we only got 3 chapters left, so it's just yeah, very, very, very convenient. So, I see why people are having complaints about this, because, once again, I understand Urame and Hikari aren't, let's say, quote-unquote, main characters, but even then, there was a lot of time dedicated to Hikari, and there was definitely a lot of mystery and intrigue built up about, Urame, and having basically just the entire fight off-screen, the last thing you see of the characters is basically them shirtless, which is pretty questionable. It brings a lot of question marks to the whole of what they've been doing. I mean, for a while now, FYI, if you're unaware of this, there's been an active, ongoing meme within the JJK community that Urame and Hikari, throughout these, like, last 40 or so chapters, they've been basically off-screen. They've been just having very rough, intimate moments with each other. That's what the community has basically kind of, you know, coined it. And with the whole shirtless segment of the chapter, it kind of implies maybe that is what's going on. Obviously, I really doubt that is, but, you know, it's kind of funny that, you know, just the fight ends with them both shirtless. But, anyways, with that aside, we need to get into another problem. Now, it's not the fact that Sukuna was defeated, because obviously he does need to be defeated. He's the final villain, completely fine. And to be fair, there has been a countless amount of fights against him. It's been a gauntlet that he's been running for basically over a year at this point, and it began with Gojo. And he's defeated pretty much the entire cast. Like, the entire cast of JJK has pretty much succumbed to Sukuna's might. And if there is something he definitely proved, it is that he truly was the strongest sorcerer in history. Like, he is legitimately a menace. But the thing about the entire ordeal is that it's not the problem that he was defeated or even turned into this, like, blob-like creature in, you know, the latest chapter of JJK. The problem is that he was defeated in the middle of the chapter, and then it went into a time skip to where Megumi wakes up, Nobara and Yuji are completely fine. And it's a very unspecified amount of time, but basically there is a time skip in the middle of the chapter. As soon as we have the final panel with Sukuna, when he's literally disappearing in front of, you know, Yuji, like this little glob, you know, little blob-like creature, you know, we do a time skip to Megumi waking up, and it's just like, there was not enough, like, transition of, like, the pacing to really get a good vibe of Sukuna's end. It just feels like Sukuna's end was just wrote so quickly just to get to the ending as quick as possible. And it feels very rushed, very forced, so to speak. And I'm just, like, I'm not a big fan of that. It really is a whiplash of emotions and writing when you have, like, this climactic battle with the final villain, and then instantly, in the middle of the chapter, it shifts over to a happy-go-lucky where Nobara is getting into a box, jumping out of a box, and trying to surprise Megumi and all that. It's like, yeah, it's funny, don't get me wrong. That would have been fine if it was, let's say, the next chapter, but the fact that we had that in the same chapter Sukuna was defeated in the middle of the chapter just feels so out of place, and just, like I said, it's a complete 180 of the emotions that the chapter was obviously giving you. Once again, I know Gege needs to wrap up the story. You know, at this current time, there's only 3 chapters left now, but it's just like, you definitely had better ways to potentially do this. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know if Shonen Jump is theoretically rushing Gege Akutami. Like, I don't know if they, you know, are saying you gotta get the series out right now. I don't know. I don't know how the internal structure of their magazine works. I do know that sometimes there is series that they do want out as quick as possible. Basically, they're like, oh, you might have like 10 or 50 chapters left, you know, wrap it up, so to speak, and they just don't give the author enough time at all. You know, obviously stuff like this probably does happen within the magazine, but just judging by the overwhelming popularity of JJK, how it's just continued to make waves, and I mean, once again, just to the leak culture alone and discussion on social media, it just shows the overall interest in JJK. It's definitely not a small community, so I don't believe that Shonen Jump, Shueisha, is trying to rush JJK out the door. I think it's more or less probably Gege that wants to kind of end the story, which is a huge question mark, because it's like, I understand, if the man wants to end the story, that's completely fine. You know, he can end the story whenever he wants, but it's just like, you know, there is better ways to end a story, and it just really makes me wonder what was going through his mind when, you know, he decided to end it like this, because there's so much setup. Like, you know, to get into the main concept of what this chapter does, okay, what it really does and why people are having issues with it, it confirms that we're not going to get a Sukuna backstory, which, you know, obviously, you know, there's been a lot of hopes for that for a year plus now, or actually since the beginning of the story. That's not happening. We're not getting a Sukuna flashback. You know, we, like I said, didn't get the Hikari-Urame fight. Urame just straight up offs themselves, like, for no reason, because Sukuna's defeated. We have the whole time skip shenanigans and all that, and Megumi waking up, Nobara's there, Yuji's there, and everything's happy-go-lucky. The chapter ends off with Yuta, something going on with Yuta. We don't really know what's happening there. That could obviously set up for something, but it doesn't change the fact that it's just like, the chapter basically says as well that Kinjaku is potentially not relevant. Now, he might be, maybe, there might be a possibility he could become relevant with whatever's going on with Yuta, but it's like, with his final words, he's like, you know, his will live on, about the merger, about the whole situation with Tengen as well, and the Culling games. It's like, it doesn't feel like a really good conclusion. A lot of things were just rushed to the conclusion, and I want to be honest, there's a lot of characters that feel rather worthless thanks to this, you know, latest chapter. Now, once again, this is early leaks. This is definitely early stuff, and obviously, my opinion, a lot of people's opinions can change once the officials come out, but it does not change the fact, at least right now, looking in and looking at the translations and everything that's come out, it doesn't look too good. It really doesn't. And it's really sad, because it's like, JJK is an incredibly popular series, but it's becoming increasingly more and more obvious that the community is not really liking this ending. It's becoming very apparent, and I have seen it. It's not just me saying this. There is thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people sharing the exact same opinion as I do. So it is very telling, especially with just how overwhelmingly popular the series has been. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much. May all of you have a fantastic day or night wherever you live. Be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.